On today's episode of the Katie Halper Show, we talk to the nation's Ali Gharib about the historic deal between the U.S. and Iran, chat about Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, who announced his intention to seek the Republican nomination, with Refinery 29's Meredith Clark, go over the headlines with political comedian Justin Williams, and we bring you an exclusive radio interview with the artist behind the most creative response to Donald Trump's racism so far, the Donald Trump Butt Plug. What's worse for the Donald is that the genius behind this invention, Fernando Sosa, was born and raised in the Mexico. Tune in to the Katie Halper Show, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. on WBAI at 99.5 FM or FwdRad.io on the web.
It's 6 p.m. here on WBAI New York, 99.5 FM, and WBAI.org on the web. Stay tuned for the Katie Halper Show.
Hello and welcome to the Katie Halper Show. I'm your host, Katie Halper. It is Wednesday, July 15th, and I'm here with Justin Williams, a brilliant political comedian. You laugh. Don't laugh. That's not funny.
It's very nice of you. And thank you so much for having me back.
Of course.
It's good to be back here at WBAI.
Listeners may remember Justin from previous WBAI appearances on the morning show.
Mm-hmm.
And Gabe is in Oregon, but he sends his love, and he wants you to know, Reggie, that he misses you.
Oh, shucks. Really?
Yes, of course he does.
Thanks.
Justin, I don't know if you've been listening to the show. A big fan of it.
Yes.
But Gabe and Reggie have a very warm, special relationship.
Yeah, it was just organic.
It was so organic. So this is what Gabe says. Dear loyal listeners, I'm out in Portland, the land of microbreweries and nudist bike rides. Looking forward to being with you next week. And Reggie, keep holding down on the soundboard. See you all soon. So I'm live in studio without Gabe, but I'm here with Justin Williams. And I'm here with Reggie Johnson. Reggie Johnson, I like to call him the ivory tickler.
The ivory tickler?
That sounds really wrong.
What's
it called? The pianist. I like calling him I like comparing engineering to music, so I consider him to be
composer.
Sure, the composer,
director, conductor.
Oh wow, you've thought about this quite a bit, haven't you?
No, it's just there's moments of clarity,
and then there's moments of darkness.
Yeah,
obscurity.
Yeah. I experience my darkness most of the day. So
okay. Well, Justin is here, the shining light. Justin is a political comedian. You can see him all over. Gabe, by the way, if you're in Oregon, you can see Gabe perform. I'm just going to give Gabe a little shout-out. You can see him perform at a bicycle shop bar performance space called Velo Cult on a show called Earthquake Hurricane. That sounds very stable. Justin, where can people see you perform?
I'll be performing in an actual earthquake and hurricane.
Nice. Take that,
week.
Gabe. He'll take your natural disaster and top that and raise it.
I do all my shows. I'll be performing at the Greek economic crisis. I'll be performing in that. That's going to be a good one.
That's
I think I'll be able to hold
not a dry eye in the house.
How are they going to pay you?
I have a really bad agent, so I just get booked for the gigs and I just go. I don't even care.
Okay. Will they at least pay you with food?
That's the hope.
Only Spanakopita. Unlimited Spanakopita.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
I wanted to talk a little bit, and you can see me tonight at Laughing Liberally at Jimmy's 43 between 2nd and 3rd. That's 7th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenues. Justin Williams is often on Laughing Liberally with us. He's a great comedian.
Yeah, last month, Jimmy McMillan on.
Jimmy McMillan. So we told listeners about this, but in case you forgot or you're a first-time listener, Jimmy McMillan of The Rent is Too Damn High, he graced the stage with his presence. And did you enjoy that, Justin?
Of course I did. Okay. Jimmy McMillan.
He's your spiritual father, isn't he?
I love it. Because, I just like anybody that prefaces a response at a gubernatorial debate with, as a karate master.
Right. I've heard you use that a couple times.
Yeah. I mean, so he won my heart immediately.
Coming to us soon live in studio will be Ali Gharib, the writer at The Nation. He'll be talking to us about Iran. Then we'll be joined by Meredith Clark, a political writer at Refinery 29. And then, guys, this is huge news. We have an exclusive radio interview with Fernando Sosa, the Mexican-born artist who has created
Ready for it?
I'm ready.
We heard about the Donald Trump piñata, right? That was great. That was a Mexican-born, raised, and still living in Mexico artist who made a Donald Trump piñata. This guy made a Donald Trump butt plug.
Yes.
Reggie does not look. Yeah, right.
I was not ready for that.
You weren't. I don't think America is ready for that.
I was expecting anything but that.
I mean,
really?
Were we ready for Donald Trump?
I don't want to be ready for Donald Trump. I just have to deal with it like a cold.
Right. Like the worst cold
the
ever.
flu. Yeah, I mean, with the phlegm and all that stuff.
Right.
How can you not like Donald Trump? He gave his presidential announcement extemporaneously. That's be the first time in history someone's like, you know what? I'm going to announce I'm running for president and just do it off the cuff, and then make a bunch of remarks that will then lose me millions of dollars.
Right. Speaking of which, we have some interesting stories. Racist presidential candidate Donald Trump was threatened this week by the notorious drug lord El Chapo. El Chapo was in prison for running a vast criminal narco cartel run with brutal efficiency and enforced with unbelievable violence. And he escaped after his underlings dug him a 1 mile tunnel and then threatened the Donald Trump via Twitter. So I feel like this is something that the Donald would. First of all, I have a couple theories. One thing is that I think that the Donald Trump paid for El Chapo to escape. Because what is better PR for Donald Trump, who's so anti-Mexican, than having a criminal on the loose?
Yes.
A criminal mastermind. But I'm also conflicted because I feel like Donald Trump may actually really admire him because he does think Mexicans are really good at building walls, and they just built a tunnel, right?
And yes.
Isn't that more like burrowing rather than building?
You're right. Oh, Reggie.
Well, there was a nice tunnel. I saw it.
Yeah,
it looked nicer than the Brooklyn Queens Expressway. It was a really
that
nice
tunnel was nicer than a lot of walls.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go ahead and say that.
Actually, it is pretty elaborate.
Yeah.
Right? And then in other Trump news...
They picked him up in a Cadillac out of that tunnel.
That's, with wings. In other Trump news, a USA Today Suffolk University poll says that the supposed presidential candidate leads the Republican field with 17%, beating out his next closest rival, former Florida governor and W brother Jeb Bush, by 3 percentage points.
Yes, this is great news.
Trump. I don't know what to say about that, except I'm torn. I kind of want him to win because I think it would be the most entertaining presidency in the world.
It is something to be said that Bush has a more progressive immigration plan than Hillary Clinton.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's because Bush identifies as Hispanic. I don't need to remind you guys that
his wife.
he registered in his voting registration.
That's right,
he checked off Hispanic.
That's
so he's
right.
transracial.
And he's also governor of Florida, too.
Right.
It's like, you can't be
Right.
Well,
Yeah, I know.
I remember.
He's a realistic
Has anybody
man.
visited Miami?
Yeah.
If you have a closed border policy, Miami would be a lot less interesting.
And don't
city.
forget that Bush mentioned the grandkids as the little brown ones.
Yeah.
That's adorable.
Yes.
But in their defense, aren't they? They're like Prescott's. They're like old school Mayflower money, right?
They don't know.
So
they don't know how to talk.
So Columba's got to be the first color in that family in
God.
400 years. So
at least the first acknowleded color, right?
Oh, acknowledged color,
right?
yeah.
Besides the slave owning, the potential slave owning that they probably have.
Right.
A la Thomas Jefferson.
And Strom Thurmond.
Yeah, and Strom Thurmond, yeah.
So I wanted to share another story because the thing I like about Donald Trump is that he doesn't just say offensive, problematic things. He tweets them. I don't know if you heard about this. His campaign tweeted a promotional photo featuring what appeared to be Nazi German soldiers superimposed on the U.S. flag. Did you hear about this?
No, I did not.
His brilliant social media people took a stock photo of a Nazi reenactment. Didn't notice it was a Nazi reenactment. It happened to the best of us. I constantly confused the sides of the World War II.
Goering used to use an iPhone.
He did.
So
Goering did. And Goebbels was the droid man, right?
Yeah.
Goebbels was on the droid and Goering was the iPhone. But I thought this was an interesting opportunity to talk about other social media fails. Paula Deen, of course, America's most famous racist celebrity chef. You remember her a couple years ago. It was revealed that she used the N-word a lot, and she lost some deals over that. But on the plus side, sales for her cookbook soared, and she was immortalized by a riveting, if perhaps overly ambitious, episode of Law & Order SVU, which took on her story, Trayvon Martin, and Stop and Frisk, the policy.
In the whole episode?
Mm-hmm, one episode. That's like less than 60 minutes. Yeah, pretty good.
She makes some chicken at the end or something
Yeah,
like that?
she did. I think she stirred. Sybil Shepherd played her, and I think it was solved with some. Yeah, I guess it was resolved.
Most likely deep fried and breaded and buttered fat,
Right.
stuff like that.
But this time it was Dean who did the firing because a photo of the chef and her son Bobby dressed as Lucy and Ricky Ricardo from I Love
Jesus
Lucy,
Christ.
complete with skin darkening makeup for Bobby, showed up on
Awesome.
her social media accounts along
Awesome.
with the allegedly funny and eerily prescient caption, "Lucy, you got a lot of explaining to do." And it was written out, explaining. That's why I say it like that. And there's nothing wrong with dressing up as characters from a beloved TV show, even the incestuous thing where your son is playing your husband. I can let that go. She is from the South.
Yeah.
But let's go out on a limb and say that no one should ever incorporate blackface or brownface into their Halloween costumes or their social media strategy or their lives.
I just think that this story shows that if you give someone a second chance, they'll always learn from it.
Exactly.
That's what I
Exactly.
think.
They
That
learn.
is well said.
It is, yeah. This is a narrative of redemption. Paula Dean, the redemption story.
Because now she downgraded from the N-word to brownface.
Right, brown face is like
Which
so
that's
much
progressive
better.
for her.
Yeah, it's beige face. Honestly, it's beige.
Yeah, it's just now she's just offending Cubans instead of African Americans.
Right. And the photo was from the 2011 Halloween episode of Paula's Best Dishes, and it's not really clear what inspired her social media manager to dig this gem out of the vault in July.
Oh, Lord.
But that person was fired. Okay, so
You know
that's
Paula Dean's best dishes? The baby back to Africa ribs. They're
oh
really
my
good.
God. Did you hear that?
I just heard that.
I
Because she's
can't.
racist.
I get it.
I get it.
Because she's racist.
I like it. I
get
just
it.
feel like I can't. I don't have
You don't
the
feel
right
like you
to
can touch
laugh.
that one?
I can't laugh. Reggie, could you laugh for me, please?
I can't laugh.
Listen.
I could picture the audience right now because we got some fickle audience members out there that gets really sensitive over things.
Why, they vegan?
No,
Yes,
it's not
exactly.
even.
That was good.
No. It's not even about
No,
vegan.
I think Justin.
Yeah.
Justin was
So
picking up what you're
I'm
putting
just
down.
doing you a favor and just like saying,
What's the favor? You're just giving him a warning.
I'm
Give him some
thinking-
cover. Give him
yeah.
some cred.
Well,
Talk about his.
well-
He marched in. Where did you march? In
Where did I march?
yeah,
I was in Selma.
yeah.
did you
Time travel.
hashtag
Time
Black
travel.
Lives Matter or anything like that?
I did.
Yeah, you know,
before I made that
it's-
Paula Dean joke, I tweeted
Yeah.
John Lewis,
Yes.
and he gave me permission to say it. So.
He actually
That's
requested
funny.
that.
He
He
did.
said, "Can you make up a Paula Dean ironic, irreverent, racist
Right.
joke?"
He did.
Speaking of ironic, irreverent jokes, there are also bankers in Birmingham, England, who were fired over reenacting and recording and posting on Instagram a mock ISIS beheading. Okay.
That's an interesting.
What?
To do
Wait,
what?
Wait, say
But this
what?
is the best part. So one of the bank employees, the one who nabbed the coveted leading role of beheading victim, rocked an orange jumpsuit as he kneeled in front of his 5 colleagues,
Oh, boy.
who did a lovely job as a supporting ensemble cast in black tracksuits and baklavas. They were fired after the insensitive clip circulated online. And, to be fair, the video was reportedly made, I'm not making this up, during a work-sponsored team-building exercise. And you can only do so many trust falls before it becomes boring and, quite frankly, dangerous, right? So who can really blame those guys?
What bank was this?
HSBC.
Wow.
I'm going to go ahead and stick up for these guys. I understand what they're doing because nothing says open a money market checking account like an ISIS reenactment.
It's
Yeah,
true.
really.
I want those guys to be managing my finances. I want to diversify my portfolio with ISIS.
Maybe they could do
ISIS
something with my
reenactors.
defaulted student loan situation that I have. You know,
True.
maybe they can do something like that. If they could take on student loans like that, the way they're taking on what you just mentioned, maybe I should go with them.
Yeah, I'm down.
That actually might be a popular thing in America. If we were like, can we send ISIS to Sally Mae headquarters? I think we might get like
You know
huge-
what?
Maybe.
You know what? I
That's
would,
not a bad
I would,
idea.
I would go with that. I would totally go
People,
with
people
that.
were like, you know what? I disagree with everything that group stands for and does.
You know
but
what?
in this case,
Look, you just said Sally Mae. All right, so that's all you need to say.
Well, guys, speaking of Sally Mae, we're going to turn to a story that's a little bit more international than Sally Mae. How'd you like that as a segue? And we're going to talk about Iran with Ali Gharib from The Nation. And then we're going to talk about Scott Walker with Meredith Clark from Refinery 29. And then we have our very special exclusive interview with the creator of the Trump butt plug, Fernando Sosa. But we're going to take a little short musical break, and then we'll be back with Ali Gharib.
To dance, looking for romance.
And welcome back to the Katie Halper Show. I am your host, Katie Halper. I'm live in studio with Reggie Johnson, comedian Justin Williams, and Nation writer Ali Gharib, foreign policy expert, who is going to be talking to us about Iran. Now, I don't have to explain to you my music choice, do I, Ali? Why I just played that song?
No, I got it.
You got it?
Yeah.
So in case listeners don't know, they're not as up on their John McCain humor trivia. John McCain, always a hilarious man. He once responded to a question about Iran being terrorists by singing the following.
That old Beach Boys song, Bomb Iran. Bomb, 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 bomb. Anyway.
What a guy. That guy is such a mensch.
Who laughs
all
at
around.
that?
I laughed. You didn't laugh inside a little bit?
No.
Ali,
Call him a mensch.
I called him a mensch, yeah. He probably hates me now.
Okay,
He's going to take a shower now, John McCain. Right? So, Ali, you wrote an article, right, in The Nation.
I did.
As is your wont,
Yeah.
because you write there.
Sometimes, yeah. I
Sometimes?
mean, most of the time.
Most of the time. You were a reporter at Think Progress.
Yep.
You were at Daily Beast.
Yeah, I worked for the Zionists there.
Worked for the Zionists. How has that affected your dating life?
Neutral.
Opens new markets, doesn't it?
Neutral. No. No,
No,
actually,
it doesn't.
It
Oh,
didn't.
okay. We're going to have an episode that's all about how working for Zionists affects your love life. To be continued. But you wrote 25 years ago.
25 months ago.
Did I just say years?
I
I'm
don't know.
sorry. Iranians went to the polls and elected a mullah, Rouhani, from among the much demonized Iranian mullahs as president. You said the bellicose Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took to the American airwaves to deride Rouhani's smile. The remark was not without irony. Ahmadinejad smiled a lot himself, but his grins were those of a mischievous child, the needling of authority that came after a misdeed. That Netanyahu didn't recognize the smiling precedent and the distinction with the difference that Rouhani represented spoke ill of his interpretation of events. Both smiled, but the new Iranian president was clearly of another breed. I like that.
Thank you.
That's very poetic.
Thank you.
A lot of psychoanalysis.
Lyrical, somebody told me.
Lyrical, yes. It's like one of the great Persian poets, if you will.
Yeah, Hafez or Rumi or something.
Rumi, yeah, exactly.
I
Yeah.
just had a young cousin born named Rumi, a girl.
Mazel tov.
Thank you.
Is that a unisex name or
No,
Okay.
it's a boy's name, but given to a girl.
Good. Your family sounds very progressive.
Yeah, creative types.
Creative,
you know.
yeah. Do they like
21st
WBAI?
century.
21st century. Nice. Awesome. So, talk about this smile. First of all, I usually like talking about Netanyahu's smile, which is very attractive. I don't know
Does
if
he
you've
smile,
seen it.
or?
Oh my God, yeah, he has like a half smile. He goes up on one side. It's a very evil-looking smile, which is befitting, I would say, for Netanyahu.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I have to say, like, we all do things that we probably shouldn't. One of them was when I was editing this Peter Beinert's blog at the Daily Beast. Like, if it was kind of a mean, critical post about Netanyahu, I'd there are all these, like, wire photographs of him looking pretty evil
right,
with, like,
right.
his arched eyebrows and,
Right.
like, dramatic lighting, and I would try and always pick those
Right.
because I'm mean.
Right. But that is basically the social media editing equivalent of washing Israel into the sea. I've heard that said before.
Yeah, it could be. It could be.
Could be
I mean,
construed as that.
I think the real threat is global warming pushing the sea into the Jews. But
You're right. That would be an interesting way to maybe unite. Maybe Iranians and Israelis and American Jews, we could all unite against the greater enemy that is climate
we got
change.
so much more country, though. Like, we lose a little bit of coastland, and Israel loses the whole shebang. Yeah, I mean, like, this is something that a lot of, like, Iran hawks, like, people that some of them I think legitimately don't want to engage Iran because they think they're bad guys
Right.
and, like, don't want to do
Right.
them a solid and compromise with them at all. But I think most of these guys are war hawks, and a lot of them refuse to see that Iran has internal politics, which, like, couldn't be further than the truth. And they have to, like, go through all these contortions to try and prove their point that it really doesn't matter who's in charge. And back then in June of 2013, when there was this Iranian presidential election, like, every neocon in Washington was lining up saying the election didn't matter because Rouhani was just going to pick his favorite guy to be the next president.
Right.
But that ended up not happening, and instead, like, he, the system, it's not a true democracy by any stretch, right? The candidates are all whittled down
Right.
by this unelected council, and then of those guys, one of them gets to win. In 2009, I think it was an election fraud, and they put Ahmadinejad back in power. But that's not what happened in 2013. It's by all accounts, it was a pretty, if not free, fair election. By the time the voters actually went to the polls, and they picked this guy who really is a moderate. People say there's no such thing as a moderate, because the other day Jeffrey Goldberg wrote in his column that Hassan Rouhani, the Iranian president, was a moderate, and then he put in parentheses to be sure, a relative moderate.
Dun dun dun.
Well, all moderates
are
moderate is a relative
right?
term.
By definition,
totally
right?
redundant.
Yeah.
Maybe he's a real moral absolutist.
Jeffrey Goldberg?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah, well, you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't think Jeffrey Goldberg. I went on a campaign. I went out last night to meet a friend who's actually visiting. She splits time between Istanbul and Iran, and she's a filmmaker. And she was visiting, and I went out to meet her for a drink last night, not realizing that it was a fancy Tehran kids drink celebration for the nuclear deal.
Oh my God! So tell us, take us inside this terrorist cell that you infiltrated.
Nothing screams creeping Sharia like vodka tonics and champagne.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the first step. They get you, they intoxicate you, then
That's
they
right.
make you become observant Muslims and never drink again.
Yeah, I believe that's like Bill Cosby Sharia right there.
Yes, it is.
Slip something in the drink, and the next thing you know, you wake up in a burqa.
Then you wake up with the Sharia law
all over you. So tell us about this deal. I have a question. Okay,
is this going to air after 10 p.m. so all the kids are asleep?
I hope so. All the kids who listen to WBAI, little kids, going to bed early tonight.
Yeah, make sure you watch the episode of the Cosby Show before you go to bed. Though,
watch the Huxtables, the wholesome Huxtables. I'm going to be real about this. I have a real question. I feel like the left is divided. Half the time, the left basically says Iran has the right to pursue whatever nuclear weapons it wants to. Half the time, they say they're not doing that, so there's no need to worry.
I have a question. Why would Iran want to pursue the development of nuclear weapons? Did their neighbors did Iraq and Afghanistan get invaded by a hostile force or something like that?
Yeah.
That might make them.
Does their arch enemy that always threatens war with them have nuclear
criticizing
weapons?
it. I just feel like
Why would they do something like
but
that?
You know what I'm talking about?
I feel like the people that are pro-Iranian nuclear weapon, insofar as they do exist, are a very small minority of the kind of hard left that are so that's not born out of any real kind of strategic calculation or anything like that. That's just America hating stick it to the man. Iran should build
the
nuclear
enemy
weapons.
of my enemy is my friend.
I don't know how a real decent progressive would cheer on
any nuclear weapons.
Yeah, right. Nuclear proliferation, right? That's sort of not supposed to be our bag.
Right.
I don't know, but weapons that can kill tens of thousands of people in an instant is not very progressive.
Right.
So those people do exist. I mean, I think that there's a very high chance I haven't seen the data myself, so I don't want to say it unequivocally that Iran was doing some not necessarily had a comprehensive nuclear weapons program, but was doing some work that looked like it would be applied to nuclear weapons in the pre-2003 period. And that seems pretty legit. As far as what they've pursued since then, there's just no evidence of it, So people like Netanyahu and members of Congress can go and say whatever they want about it.
Right.
But nobody has presented evidence that this has actually happened. And I'm not talking about not the kind of evidence that you can nitpick, which is what some of the left does about the stuff before 2003, right? You see people being well, these whatever it was, they had this chamber that they were using to test really well-controlled triggered explosions that are the same kind that you use to do something like blow up atoms in the warhead of a nuclear bomb. And it was but you use these to make crystals for industrial cutting.
And eggplant.
And yeah, exactly.
Bottom John.
Yeah, Bottom June.
June.
Sorry. Either pronunciation works.
Oh, good.
like Afghan and the Afghans say Badam Jan.
Well, I always identify more with Afghan than Persian. That's just the way I roll, though.
It's an older Farsi. It's funny
like
to
me.
speak
I'm a
to them,
traditionalist.
Yeah.
When it comes to the Constitution and Farsi.
They're the Cajuns of Farsi.
The Cajuns of Farsi. So,
exactly.
So Boehner, surprisingly, so there are two things that shocked absolutely no one. That Netanyahu is not happy about this and that Boehner is not happy about this. And not just because I think they may be in a secret romantic relationship, but this is what Boehner said. The deal that we have out there, in my view, from what we know thus far, is unacceptable. And then he says, we are going to do everything we can to get the details. And if, in fact, it is as bad of a deal as I think it is at this moment, we will do everything we can to stop it. So he's openly saying he has no idea what the deal is, but he opposes it, right?
Well, that's like Lindsey Graham. I mean, the second the deal was announced, Lindsey Graham got on the phone to Josh Rogan, the designated spot for press releases
from Knocked Up.
Yeah, no, not that one. The guy at Bloomberg View,
and Seth Rogen joke. For the listeners.
And got on the phone with Josh Rogan. Rogan publishes this piece where Lindsey Graham says that signing this nuclear deal is akin to declaring war on our Arab allies in Israel, which is like. How do you just publish people saying stuff like this? I mean, how do you say this in the first place? How do you just publish people saying stuff like this? Like you don't just get to report things. That's not how journalism works. You don't just say this person said this and so I'm going to report it.
Right.
Like you take a critical eye and you say, is this true? Is this really like declaring war? Like the UN Security Council just declared war on Israel? That's what you're basically saying.
Right.
Anyway, and then later in the morning on CNN, Lindsey Graham was like, yeah, I haven't read the thing yet.
But my gut.
Yeah, his gut tells him that it's a declaration of war against Israel.
I like it.
That's the most important thing.
Right. I like it.
Get your talking points,
Exactly. I mean, Lindsey Graham is great, though, because he really commits to his role as, for instance, a straight man.
Yeah, I don't know if he's straight or not. And really, I don't care. I mean, maybe he is a lifelong bachelor.
You know what? I do care.
Maybe he is a straight
people
bachelor.
who are anti-choice and homophobic in their voting record are either abortion providers, which they're usually not, or more likely gay themselves, I think it's totally relevant. Whereas
because of the hypocrisy.
The hypocrisy. I don't care about Anthony Weiner because he didn't campaign on about sexting or DMing.
And he wasn't anti-immigration.
Right.
Because, his name was Carlos.
Oh, you're right. He would have won the Latin vote. Like, whoa, you're right. I was like, of course he wasn't anti-immigration. Why are you telling me this? But I underestimated you.
Carlos Danger.
Carlos Danger.
Carlos Danger.
I do like that combo. Right. Yeah.
Whole different kind of digging out of
tunnels.
Well,
any predictions? What's going to happen?
Another nice Republican guy, Mark Kirk, said today that this was just like Munich.
How many Holocaust comparisons have we had so far? Holocaust
from
World
Mark
War II.
Kirk alone, like 7.
Right, 7. We should compile them.
I think that's a fair comparison, because I think we can definitely compare post-World War England to superpower United States.
Yeah.
And we can certainly compare the Nazi war machine to Iran, which has not invaded a country since the Persian Empire? That's the last time.
Yeah, but that was a big invasion.
What about the Iraq War in the 90s?
The 80s, that was started by Iraq.
The Iraq invaded Iran. Yeah.
Right.
Wow, Reggie.
I don't want to get all nationalist here.
I know.
But I'm just
with
saying.
the encouragement of Mr. Donald Rumsfeld.
Yes.
I mean, one of the best moments, though, in Iran-Iraq history is when Condoleezza Rice was asked if the U.S. was going to invade Iran. And she said, the United States understands and believes that Iran is not Iraq.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I don't even remember.
I mean,
that.
she basically didn't answer the question that she was asked, but she got to the crux of the question.
She just clarified that the president of the United States can tell countries
which was
apart.
Like, does Bush know that Iran and Iraq are two separate countries? Because I think what happened is she made him like flashcards or something, but then he, I think, was misspelling Iraq because he just figured out the U after Q rule. So that was like really hard for him. But yeah, I guess he did know the difference, which is very exciting. But do you think that Boehner, did any of the Republicans actually read it? In other words, there are two theories that I have. One is that they read it, but they don't want to seem like nerds, or they don't want Sarah Palin to make fun of them for being intellectual, so they're pretending they didn't, or are they just being so openly disrespectful and idiotic that they just
I don't think they
it?
read things. And like, look at Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham, said last year he went and met with Bibi and was like, Bibi, we're going to follow your lead. So like, what does he need to read it for?
And
He's
Bibi
getting his instructions.
Right? Didn't Bibi once famously say in a video that he knows how to move around the Americans?
Yeah, he said that it's a mountain that's easy to move.
Yeah. So poetic.
He's right, though. Yeah. It's really...
You Middle Easterners really have a way with words. I love
right.
it.
He's from Poland originally.
Exactly. But... Middle East of Central Eastern Europe. That's what I meant.
Middle Eastern Europe, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Ali, thank you so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
Come back. Where can we find you online?
I'm on Twitter at Ali_Gharib.
Okay, great. And stick around. We'll do maybe take some photos. We'll do a photo shoot, all of us, put that on Instagram.
For Gabe?
Yes. For Gabe. Oh, we forgot to say, Gabe.
Hey, Gabe.
We're pouring out some insert Persian drink for you because you're not here. But I wanted to feel comfortable, so what I did is I invited one of your high school colleagues to be here, and that is Ali Gharib. There's a big reveal.
Me and Gabe went to high school together.
It's true. So come back soon and check out Ali's work online. He's great. Follow him on the Twitters. And now we are going to be talking with Meredith Clark from Refinery 29 about Scott Walker. We're going to take a quick musical break, and this is actually a mashup I made of Scott Walker talking about mandatory ultrasounds and how cool they are, set to Rebirth of Slick, a.k.a. Cool Like That by Diggable Planets.
We defunded Planned Parenthood. We signed a law that requires an ultrasound. The media tried to make that sound like that was a crazy idea. I think most people I talk to, whether they're pro-life or not, I find people all the time who get out their iPhone and show me a picture of their grandkids' ultrasound and how excited they are. So that's a lovely thing. My sons are 19 and 20, and we still have their first ultrasound picture. It's just a cool thing out there.
But I'm cool like that. 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 I'm cool like that.
Hello, and welcome back to the Katie Halper Show. We are here every Wednesday at 6 p.m. on FwdRad.org, 99.5 FM. We just did a little interview with Ali Gharib from The Nation. We still have coming on later in the show Fernando Sosa, the artist who created the Donald Trump butt plug. And we're so excited to be live in studio with Meredith Clark, a political writer from Refinery 29. Hello, Meredith.
Hi, Katie. How are you?
Good. You?
I'm doing very well.
Now, we just played a clip of Scott Walker talking about how cool ultrasounds were.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody feels like really invasive mandatory medical procedures are just the height of fun times.
Well, because, okay, you're from Wisconsin, right?
I am,
So
yes.
I wanted to know, maybe there's a cultural thing. Does cool mean the same thing in Wisconsin as it does outside of Wisconsin?
Yes, generally.
It does, okay. And is this some kind of tradition we don't know about, like cow tipping or something? Uterine probing?
No, I mean, like, this isn't something that people do at tailgating for the Packer games along with their brats and beer. This is...
It's not. Okay,
No.
I just want to be culturally sensitive because
No,
I'm not
don't
from
worry.
there. Next question for you about Wisconsin-related stuff. Is it part of the state constitution that you have to pronounce the name Wisconsin? Is that a requirement to be a resident there?
No, although someday that may break, the
Right.
different regions into several pieces.
Oh, a little civil war.
Possible.
You've been writing a lot about Scott Walker, who, by the way, of course, made history by becoming the 17,000th? No, just the 15th Republican, right?
Yeah.
To declare himself fit to lead the free world. You've been writing a lot about him.
Yeah. Over the last couple of years, as he's been running for re-election during the recall, and I was out in Wisconsin when he had proposed Act 10, and there were big protests happening back in 2011.
Now, I'm going to ask you a very personal question.
Yes.
Given that you've written so much about him, do you have a crush on Scott Walker?
I mean, that bald spot is just so shiny.
It is. It's magnetic. It brings you in like a moth flying to the light. So you don't. You're saying live on the Katie Halper Show you do not have a crush on Scott Walker.
I am not covering Scott Walker and his political career because of some sort of misguided affection.
Okay. Is that because you actually only have eyes for Glenn Grothman?
Oh, God, I mean...
I cornered you. You didn't expect me to know this, did you?
I'm nice and impressed, but, he had such great opinions on things like Kwanzaa.
State Senator Glenn Grothman, why do you say it's a fraudulent holiday?
Well, I think the average person thinks Kwanzaa is some African celebration that's been around for hundreds of years. In fact, it was just created in 1966 by a radical Marxist.
There's just a wealth of Wisconsin politicians to have warm feelings about.
There's so many. They attack single parents.
A lot of child abuse and neglect. It just very disproportionately arises in what I'll call non-intact families. Over time, we're having more and more families that are not old-fashioned families. As a matter of fact, people sometimes even make fun of old-fashioned families and say we're not going to bring old-fashioned families with the biological father and mother raising the kids back.
They attack protesters.
Would you like to apologize to these protesters for referring to them as slobs?
Oh, I'll maybe qualify what I said. Some of them are friendly slobs. Some of them are lovable slobs, but they're still slobs. And they snore a lot, too. They're kind of loud.
This is Scott Walker at CPAC, comparing the people who protested his getting rid of collective bargaining to ISIS.
I want a commander-in-chief who will do everything in their power to ensure that the threat from radical Islamic terrorists do not wash up on American soil. If I can take on 100,000 protesters, I can do the same across the world.
All the people who really threaten democracy in this country.
Well, there's just good ones too. I mean, Russ Feingold is from Wisconsin.
True.
But
you're right. Thank you for defending. And Meredith, I'm sorry. There are lots of New Yorkers I can't stand, so I don't want you to think I'm beating up on Wisconsin.
But it is a pretty impressive gallery of characters right now. Russ Feingold lost to Ron Johnson, although he is running again in 2016, and I think is polling very well. Sean Duffy, former Real World Boston castmate, is now a congressman from northern Wisconsin, married to Rachel Puck's ex-girlfriend.
Oh my God,
yes.
Rachel from the Real. Did you know this? I had no idea.
Sean flirts with me all the time. Part of me thinks he likes me. I told Cynthia, and she's like, duh. Stop getting fresh with me.
I did not know.
So Sean Duffy does not believe in corporate taxes, or abortion either. They're very Catholic, so just.
You mean he believes in freedom?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Is Eugene Debs still around there?
Oh, good old Eugene. Good old Debs.
I vote for him.
So. What my question is, how does someone like Scott Walker actually win in a blue state? He likes to brag about that. How does that happen?
Well, I mean, something that people outside of Wisconsin, I think, don't pay as much attention to is that even though voters tend to vote for Democrats in presidential elections, there is such a huge range of opinions and backgrounds in the different parts of the state that you can end up with very, very Republican districts up in the north, near Green Bay, out in the country, and then have, the more heavily populated areas of Milwaukee and Madison end up with, very, very, very liberal. And those things have just become so entrenched and so deep that now Walker has been able to exploit that and get just enough votes to pull through.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I'm from Missouri. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like the cities and the rural areas can't cancel each other out, and the suburbs is who wins the elections. Yeah.
Well, and I think a lot of people are very conscious that the federal government means different things to them, and so they want a state authority that's going to cut certain benefits and protect their taxes against black children getting to have schools.
Right. Another threat to democracy.
Very important. Yeah. Wisconsin, actually, fun fact, has some of the worst racial disparities when it comes to poverty and education in the entire country, if not the worst, I believe. Yeah.
Well, I would say to that, Molotov. Because as I mentioned on another show, once Scott Walker, I don't know if you guys know this, he wrote a letter to a donor around Passover and said Molotov instead of Molotov.
I mean, I do feel kind of bad because it's not a lot of diversity in Wisconsin. Right. He was trying.
No, I think he's basically like the Martin Luther King of Wisconsin. I'm not the first one who's called him that. I can't. I don't think I am. And did anything surprise you about Scott Walker's announcement, by the way?
Nothing surprised me about the announcement. In a lot of ways, I think people who've been following his career over the last couple of years were really expecting him to do more or less what he did, which was really avoid social issues to try and survive his reelection campaign. And then as soon as he won, throw a ton of really, really conservative things into the state budget, pass the 20-week abortion ban, pass right to work, all of the things that he would need to do to kind of build credibility with voters in Iowa and New Hampshire, places that he needed to stand out when he was getting ready. So he's going to plan. It still surprises me that he's been so successful because he is he's so extreme. It's very surprising to me that voters have responded as well, although I'm not an expert in conservative politics, so just Scott Walker.
Right. But It's interesting because I find myself not sufficiently repulsed by him, given his record. Mm-hmm. There's something disarming. There's something like very kind of folksy, I guess, that I feel like I'm usually immune to, but there's something unthreatening about him.
No, I think that you've really nailed exactly what makes him such a formidable candidate and why people keep underestimating him. I mean, there was a lot of talk for a while about how Walker hadn't finished college, right. And that very quickly became a liability for his critics because he is so good at saying, well, I had a job, I wanted to be able to support a family, all of these people have to make these tough decisions, and he's been able to kind of turn what a lot of people on the left talk about in terms of the cost of higher education, student debt, and bring that back into a place where he said, well, I'm just like all of these hardworking Americans. The fact
right.
that he is like genuinely from a modest background and like despite his lifetime in conservative politics, never really benefited from that financially, gives him a much better sort of place to work from.
Right.
And it's right in his wheelhouse in Wisconsin, right? Oh, you say you never finished college. And he goes, well, that's a bunch of Madison elitism.
Right,
absolutely.
A bunch of University of Wisconsin socialists.
Right.
Hey, look, as a born and bred Madison elitist, I feel like that was kind of a low blow for him. But,
right.
I see
you
why
expected more after all this time you spent with him.
Yeah, I thought we had
on the internet.
Special.
Exactly, yeah. Both parties, especially the Republicans, they kind of brag that they were conceived of and born in a mine shaft, right, or something. Mm-hmm. Shouldn't that make them more kind of a traitor when they wind up screwing over the very people that they claim to represent?
Well, but I think that in some ways that's really the heart of what the successful candidates have had is the ability to exploit the resentment of working class voters, especially working class white voters, about the fact that they can speak in the right language and use the right code to recognize that, I understand what it's like to look at somebody and say they have more than me and I wish they didn't. But he just, he's a little bit more authentic because he doesn't
right.
come from Bush money. He doesn't
right.
come from Mitt Romney money. And that makes it just a little bit more palatable. He doesn't look as uncomfortable when he's on a Harley, which,
right.
could conceivably be somebody's only major purchase, maybe
right.
other than a boat.
Right.
Yeah, and there's just a certain. It's the real problem is that white rural poverty is just made invisible in this country. So, like the white poor in this country think of themselves as middle class.
Right.
So they'll vote to cut their own programs because
right.
they don't even see themselves as being on those
right.
programs.
Right. Thank God for white privilege, right?
Yeah, but it's
and
not.
Delusional
it's really not. It's like white not privilege though. It's really using
right.
whiteness against white people.
No, of course, but
it's my conspiracy theory.
It's the racial white privilege that cloaks. Right. It's being able to walk down the street and not get shot by a cop. That then lets you feel like you're not in the same class, which we don't have because we don't have class in theory, right? That you're not in the same class as the black people.
Yeah, it's just delusion. Because
right,
I'm telling you right now, I'm a black guy. I would not trade. I'm from the Midwest. I've hung out in rural areas. I would not trade places with any white person living in a poor
Maybe you
rural
can
community.
Organize them. Maybe you can become their savior, their black savior.
I don't think that's
forget
what
the white savior
thing. They're looking for.
No, you don't think so?
I was going to say that would be a very interesting cultural exchange program.
I know. Yeah, he's very handsome, listeners. You don't know the face could do a lot.
That's the key. That's like the key to bringing America together. The
handsome
black guy
face.
that goes out to
exactly.
rural white America to organize the working class. That guy will
Meredith,
be shot
you can
immediately.
Laugh. Meredith, you don't know the rule on the show. It's great. People, thank you. Oh, what a beautiful sound. You're better than Gabe, who's in theory, my sidekick, who always covers the mic very politely when he's laughing. I'm like, no, you're supposed to laugh, but that was a great laugh, and you're not even here for comedic stuff. But you've been very funny, I want to say, and I'm not surprised because you're very funny in your writing too. Well, we are going to now come to the last part of our show, and if you feel free to stick around because you may have some very interesting questions. We are going to be speaking to Fernando Sosa, a Mexican-born artist who lives in Florida, who created the Donald Trump butt plug. Hi, how are you?
Thanks for having me in your show.
For our listeners, can you explain in a PG way I guess I can explain this, right? This is a fact of life that WBAI listeners need to be aware of. A butt plug is what one would call a sex toy, right?
Yeah.
And it's basically what it sounds like. We're not endorsing them. We're not condemning them. We're just telling you that people purchase them. So why not make them with Donald Trump's face on them? So tell me about how this idea came to you.
I've been doing butt plugs for a while. The first one I did was Putin. And the reason I did it is because I wanted to ridicule Putin for his homophobic views.
Right.
And since then, I've been doing like Kim Jong-un, George Bush, Marco Rubio, like also like homophobes and politicians and dictators.
Now, you are yourself from Mexico?
Yeah, I was born in Mexico. I came here when I was 11 years old.
And how did you feel when you heard what Donald Trump said?
When Donald Trump said that whole Mexican thing, I was really enraged, and I'm like, well, I guess what a better way to insult him back and to you make a Donald Trump butt plug.
To be fair to Donald Trump, he does think that there's some good Mexicans out there. He assumes. I guess he hasn't met any, but he assumes they must exist.
But the 200 million people living there.
The funny thing is that he only said, like, oh, they're a good thing as an afterthought, like, you know, just like a 2-second soundbite. Oh, and there's some good people.
Right. And what has the response been like? Have you been selling these butt plugs?
Yeah, I made them for last week, and they didn't really sell too much.
It's a hard market. The butt plug market is kind of saturated.
Yeah,
Meredith, you can laugh. Sorry.
You
I can't endorse that kind of thing.
Sorry. Sorry, Fernando, we cut you off.
No, yeah, it's like for every 1,000 people that click, maybe one person buys it.
Right.
So it's a hard market, but
yeah, it is.
It went viral like on Monday night, and then at 2:00 in the morning, and then it started to sell, and then I woke up in the morning, there was like, I think 30 or 40 sales. By the time the day was over, it was like up to 60. Today, it was another 60. I haven't checked in the last couple hours.
Okay. Well, are you going to be able to make enough? Are you going to run out?
Well, the beautiful thing is that with 3D printing, you don't have to have an inventory.
Right.
So
3D
you don't
printing
have to,
is so cool.
Yeah, you don't have to have an inventory. You don't have to pay money ahead. So pretty much they're made to order. So if somebody orders 100 tonight, then tomorrow 100 go on the printer, and then 100 they get delivered in about 2 weeks. If nobody buys one, then I don't lose any money.
Right.
Oh, great. I'd like to buy one. I'm going to be doing my nightclub act at the Trump Taj Mahal in Atlantic City.
Perfect.
And if I could end with your product.
Plug, so to speak.
Yeah, if I could plug your product to finish my act, that would be really
Finish your act. That's what we're calling it these days, all right?
Yeah.
Okay. And where can people find your work?
There can be found on politicalsculpture.com.
Are you afraid, though, that you're perpetuating the stereotype of the political protest butt plug creating Mexican? You may want to think that through, right? People already have that prejudice.
College-educated guy that has his own business. Ruining America.
Exactly, right, with his industriousness.
He did say that. He said, they come here, they go to college, then they make the butt plugs.
Exactly. He did.
That's what they do.
So predictable.
I'm the greatest job creator in the history of God.
Well, I'm rich. All right. I'm rich. Look, I don't need lobbyists. All right. I'm rich. I can't hate Chinese. How can I hate them? I sold them an apartment building the other day.
Yeah.
Well,
all of them.
Fernando, thank you so much for joining us, and we will link to you on the Katie Halper Show Tumblr, and keep up the good work. Keep plugging away at it. And guys, thank you so much for tuning into the Katie Halper Show. Thank you, Ali Gharib, Justin Williams, Meredith Clark. Next week, join us. We are going to have State Senator Gustavo Rivera and an interview with Johan Hari, the author of Chasing the Scream, who will be talking about the first and last days of the drug war. And we'll have some other surprises for you. And thank you, Reggie Johnson and Gabe. We dedicate this episode to you.
Viva Mexico.
Viva Mexico. Tune in next week at 6 p.m. Thank you so much.
Don't tell me what to say. Don't tell me